It's time for the Week in Review. Look at national, regional, and local stories from the past week. Here's Brandon Hansen, Managing Editor of the Chewelah Independent, and Scott Allen, Managing Director of Northern Lights Public Radio.
On this week's show, we start off with some very sad news, don't we, Brandon?
Yeah, the community of Valley is in shock after the recent passing of a valued community member. According to Washington State reports, 48-year-old Rebecca Kimball passed away in a rollover accident on State Route 231 on Saturday, and this was Saturday morning. She was a nurse for Valley School, had taught kind of at SEC, and again, registered nurse, so was involved in the medical community around here. According to reports, Kimball's silver BMW X3 rolled over on State Route 231, 1 mile north of Valley. It sounded, the patrol said it was fatigue that had caused the accident, which it crossed and kind of went into the ditch and then rolled over. That's what caused the accident. There was fatigue, and they have set up a memorial bank account at Banner Bank in Chewelah for people to make donations to Rebecca Kimball for her family. She was a single mother of 3, and 2 children were still living at home, so they're trying to kind of fundraise just so the kids can have some money, and once they figure things out. I believe I read that there is an aunt that kind of can help with the kids and whatnot, which is good news there. But when you have these passings, it's hard to access those bank accounts and things like that, because it's a whole mess to get into that kind of stuff. And if you're a kid still living at home, that's kind of a tough thing to deal with there. So just bad news all around. I know a lot of people in Valley, a lot of people in Chewelah are shocked.
I've heard people
accident.
talking about it. It's very tragic.
Yes,
especially for the kids. Wow.
Yeah, for the kids there. So, and when people hear about this accident, it seems like they have a lot of nice things to say about Rebecca there. So, kind of a big loss for the community.
All right, once again, if you'd like to help out, Memorial Bank account set up at Banner Bank here in Chewelah. Fire sprung up south of Springdale?
Yeah, I know we've been paying attention to like the Williams Flats fire and the Colville Reservation, which is something like 92% contained now, but we had a little fire closer to home. This happened just south of Springdale, but firefighters were able to stop forward progress on a wildfire that was basically near Reservation Road. It was in a field. According to Fire District 1, at the 4700 block Reservation Road, there was a single wide trailer fire, and due to the fire conditions being the way they are, the fire spread to being a wildland fire and grew to about 20 acres. So, DNR, local firefighting groups responded. They had air resources on it. They're really trying to bat it down quickly, because you really can't let that stuff get out of control, especially with as many houses are down there, people living in that area kind of deal. So they were able to stop it at about 25 acres, but that gave everybody a bit of a scare. There were evacuation notices given saying, hey, this is going on, and almost immediately as the fire started, they issued those evacuation orders, because they, with the conditions the way they are, they didn't know, how crazy it was going to be. But I don't think the wind was too bad, and they got on it early enough to really stop it in its tracks at about 20 acres, which
really nice.
Yeah, really nice there. But I think everybody's kind of got fall in their brain right now, but the fire conditions are still very dangerous. It can start with anything there. So I've seen just countless illegal burning calls,
really?
For the sheriff's office. So yeah, it's not safe to burn still. So
the temperatures are mellower than we usually have it in August, but we still haven't had. We had some rain at the beginning of the month, but it only takes 3 days to dry out around here.
Yep.
If even that. Sometimes.
Yeah, if even that, and it's not a real soaking rain. Like we had rain last night, but it's not.
It's gone.
Yeah, it's
evaporated.
Gone. So don't think, hey, we're out of the woods yet here. So.
All right.
Moving on to a little jobs news. The June unemployment rate was 6.6% for Stevens County. That's the highest rate for this month of June in 2 years, and a 0.4% uptick from May's unemployment rate. It typically is higher in the winter and then drops down in the summer kind of deal. And it also showed this report that for the state it's 4.5%, and I believe the national rate is somewhere in the threes kind of deal. So we're starting to see a little bit uptick in unemployment. Nothing to kind of freak out over. I still say 6.6% up here in this area is really good. I did look at some historical stats or whatever, and I was like, I wonder what it was like during the Great Recession, and it was up to like 12 something.
I was going to say 12.
Super high. So we're half that right now, so
nice.
We don't have to freak out, but it's always good to keep an eye out. It seems for the last 4 years it's been trending downwards from the previous year, but now this year I think we're starting to see a little bit of slack off, and it's starting to be a little bit higher than last year's unemployment rate.
I don't know about Colville, but you can look right around here at Chewelah, and we've had a lot of businesses open in the past couple of years, and that's definitely created some jobs, and businesses, new ones still opening. So,
and we've heard this over and over. People are having issues trying to find workers. And this goes for basically any industry now, just finding workers there. So that's a good problem to have. It's also kind of troubling to see that like you can't find enough qualified people to work in your business and stuff. So I know a lot of business owners are kind of struggling with that.
All right. We have some news about the Opt Pack. They were completely removed?
Yes, old profanity territory pack there in Ferry County.
All right. So the saga of the wolf reintroduction took another dramatic turn last Friday as the King County Superior Court judge issued a restraining order against the WDFW's lethal removal protocol being carried out against the old profanity territory pack in the Kettle Range of Ferry County. The twist, however, was that WDFW had already lethally removed 4 wolves the morning the order was issued. State agency believes that they have completely removed the pack. The Opt Pack was responsible for 29 attacks on livestock since September 5th of 2019. What?
2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
Typo.
2018.
Okay.
But
so we basically in the past year, 29 cattle attacks.
Yes, correct there. So with that kind of deal, this court stuff is really weird to me because in terms of wildlife management and just anything concerning, say, like conflict or public interest or public safety, you have a court system that moves very slowly. So when they make these statements, it may not really match up what's going on in the ground, and that's always kind of weird to me. So like they issue this restraining order, well, guess what? They've already removed the pack. So what happens?
Yeah, do they get their hands slapped? How does that work?
Well, and here's the thing: Fish and Wildlife is going off the protocol that they set, along with several conservation groups, ranchers, things like that. A bunch of people came together in the Wolf Advisory Group to set forth this protocol,
and then a judge overrules it, huh?
Well, here's what happens. Then these out-of-state conservation groups come in with a lawsuit, and I think one of the people in this lawsuit is a group from Maryland, so way across the country, to kind of do this restraining order kind of deal. So these aren't even people within the state trying to tell the state what to do. So it's all very very odd, very sticky. Controversial. Yeah, very sticky there. But yeah, the OPT pack is now apparently, according to the agency, completely gone there on the Kettle Range in Ferry County. And I believe they've also issued a lethal removal protocol against the Togo pack, which is also in Ferry County. So, and I believe there's 2 wolves left in that wolf pack there. That being said, there's still something like 128 wolves. A lot of people, including the agency, will admit that's a lowball figure. They think there's many more wolves than that. That's just a confirmed number. That's like, hey, this is the minimum we think is in the state. Yeah. So they feel there's more wolves than that. So even if you take out a handful of wolves, there's still a bunch around kind of deal. So
I've never seen one in the wild.
I haven't either. Despite it being on Facebook everywhere, I apparently am the worst outdoorsman and never see anything.
Me too. All right, so Matt Shea, is that his name?
There's some, we ran an
made
article.
the news in not a good way?
He keeps making the news. We ran an article this week just kind of explaining what's going on, because people are starting to talk about it in our letters to the editor, and people are starting to kind of ask around it with it. And what's happening now, and this is why I decided to finally pull the trigger and run a story on this, is...
Because you were a little leery.
Yeah, a little leery, but Spokane's police chief and mayor have declared state rep Matt Shea unfit for office after leaked emails revealed the Spokane Valley lawmaker sought to conduct surveillance on local progressive leaders, had ties to a Stevens County group that was allegedly training youth and young women in biblical warfare against Muslims, and several other instances. Now, these are leaked emails, things like that, so you can see how that gets a little murky. And there's also this, he had an issue with penning a biblical warfare document that he said was a Bible study, but now, it comes out he's has ties to a group that apparently, according to, these news stories, is training young people in biblical warfare. He also came out and called journalists dirty, godless, and hateful. I remember when that kind of hit. That happened, I think it was a gun rally there. But
all right. Does that make you tear up a little?
A little bit, but I might need a shower. So.
Okay.
But yeah, it's kind of been a laundry list the past week. The police union also kind of condemned Shea for his actions and stuff like this. There's just, every time there's a Shea article, it seems like there's a Stevens County connection to that. Now, I can't really confirm that. I'm going off of this is from leaked emails, things like that they didn't happen right now. They happened like 2 years ago in 2017, finding this info and things like that. So somebody is leaking these emails and things he said, but the chat logs, and it's stuff like, just for example, it sounds like Shea collected intelligence on Council President Ben Stuckert, Councilman Breanne Beggs, and then Councilwoman Lori Kinnear, among others. And it's just stuff like this, the surveillance, and then groups training young people. And I would say, I hope, this all gets proven a crock, because it's kind of scary. But he doesn't really talk to the media, so he doesn't come out and deny any of this either. And that's what's weird to me, is there's no denial. Like, yeah, this is all fake. Like, whatever the media's writing is wrong.
Just doesn't even address it. Huh?
Doesn't even address it. I just saw that he had a big fundraiser, and there was, it looked like a kind of a packed room of people supporting him. He's been elected 6 times since 2008 to represent the Spokane Valley, but it seems like every time Matt Shea hits the news, Stevens County, because he has ties up here and stuff, gets put in the news too, and not in the best of light either. So I would say kind of keep an eye on this. It seems like something weird is happening here in terms of all the press he's getting, all the pressure he's getting. And then also, and the thing about this is the Spokane mayor is a Republican, Matt Shea is a Republican, so it's not just kind of Democrats going after Shea anymore. It's like people in his own party. The Spokane County Sheriff has been a big critic of Shea. So
well, those people all have to be going to the state and filing complaints on him too.
And now the state house, the state house is now investigating Shea for all these things that have kind of come up here. So just to keep an eye out. And why I say this is because Shea is the leader of the 51st State Movement, which has strong ties here. I mean, when they had a huge, something like 200-300 people up at the, I believe it was the Ag Center, where they had that about 2 years ago. And, people are interested in, splitting the state and stuff. And he's kind of the leader of this. But then you hear stories like this come out and you're wondering, like, oh, what the heck's going on? So, with us, it's just when you see other politicians start to condemn, then you have to start paying attention and kind of reporting on it. It is
actual news and not hearsay and all that stuff.
Right. So. Well, and I'd still, this is all leaked emails and chat logs and stuff, which always is a gray area to me, because you don't know the context of that and all this, and
things can be copied and pasted and photoshopped.
Right. And I'm always kind of like, but he doesn't talk to the media. He calls us dirty, godless, and hateful. So, that doesn't really help with any denials or anything like that. So, it's just troubling to me. I'm trying to keep an eye on it, trying to remain objective, because I know a lot of people like the idea of splitting the state and don't like what Olympia is doing, and I hear them too, but it seems like this is reaching headlines, and again, every time this makes headlines, it gets tied back to Stevens County. So I think we need to be paying attention to what kind of identity we're getting through all these headlines here. And that's actually on an unrelated note, that was actually my opinion piece this week in the newspaper is, we really have to be looking about what our identity is here in northeastern Washington. We had that neo-Nazi militia scare a few weeks ago, and it from what I can tell, there's no hardline proof. To me, it came from some tweets from, it looks like an Antifa account, but the spokesman ran an article, and the Spokane police were looking into it. They were concerned. So it was the FBI. They were looking into this neo-Nazi group possibly buying property between, Chewelah and Colville kind of deal. And I hope that's not true. I hope, people like that aren't moving in. You really can't prevent them. They have, freedom. This is a free country. You can do what you want there. But I would hope that, that movement certainly doesn't plant any seeds here and grows. Sure. And some people are like, well, why are you talking about that? And it's like, you have to address these ideas right out in the beginning and say, no, we don't welcome that around here. That's not what we're about. And I will say, just in terms of identity in northeastern Washington, I grew up here, I live here, and these militia groups are the outliers. They're not the normal people that live here every day. And I would just hate for our identity to become something like northern Idaho. You know what I mean?
Sure.
They have been haunted by that for years, and now we're sitting here and northeast Washington's getting these news articles kicked out that just make the area look bad, to be frank.
Does. I had to explain that somebody had a group approach us that wanted airtime, but in their content there was what I felt was hate speech against, in particularly, gays and lesbians, and they were upset that I wouldn't air what they gave me and wanted to air, and I said, I'm not going to let one group attack another group. We're about trying to provide service to everyone and all people,
right?
And that's not about what we do, and I can't put that on the air,
right?
It's the same kind of thing. Is what do we represent? What kind of thoughts are we going to put out there? And that's all very negative stuff,
And the weird thing is, I feel like people are binary now, that it's just like, well, it's Republican or Democrat kind of deal. And if you report on, say a neo-Nazi group, you're going after one side. I'm like, no, this group is an outlier. This isn't, I'm not lumping in one side with, a whole other. Because I have seen people do that on both sides. They lump, all the Democrats with communists and all the Republicans with, the far right and stuff. And I'm like, that's not the case. There's a broad spectrum of views and things like that.
The squeaky wheel gets the attention.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, in politics, is we always hear about the people on the fringes of the left and right screaming, and that's what the media brings out and brings to people. But there's actually this huge corpus that are all hanging out somewhere in the middle that are going, what? Yeah.
So, and the headlines out of Stevens County lately have been very bad. That's all I can say. It's just very embarrassing and just very bad. So I just hope, again, I'm of the mind that I hope honestly, I hope this is just chasing shadows. I don't want this to be here. Like
conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I just hope that's all that. But I think we do need to take notice, because it's, it seems like every morning I wake up and there's a new crazy thing, in the mainstream media about this area, and I'm just like, gosh, this is not a good look for us.
You can even take that locally to things that me and you have both been given or sent.
Yep.
I've had a couple manifestos delivered to the radio station now. I think you've seen a couple things like that. There are people in our community that are on the fringe. We did a big broadcast one day about what people expect us to do when they walk in the newspaper or the radio station and have nothing to validate their claims, but yet think that we should be jumping all over this and broadcasting, which to us comes across as a conspiracy theory.
Right.
And we've seen a ton of that with our own city hall. Now, I can see in a big city like Spokane, our council member, do you know if they are paid there?
They are
There,
there.
so maybe there's some pocket lining and nefarious stuff going on in a big city like that. But when you take a city the size of Chewelah, where all of our council people are volunteers, they're people that care about their community, might have different agendas, but they're all in a position where they're doing something for free because they care about it. And it blows me away about the conspiracy theories that go on about our city council, our mayor, our city administrator. It gets to the point of ridiculousness.
Well, and they'll rail against that, but then there's rumors about a neo-Nazi militia, and a lot of people are like, well, don't talk about that. Like, that's just silly. But it's like, but you can talk a half hour about some grand conspiracy about the city that you have no proof about, and it's just like, boy, that's a double standard there.
It is.
So, but we just talked about in the last week in review about cattle getting shot. And there's extremists, going, apparently, like, somebody's shooting cattle. This has been a growing issue for the cattlemen for years now. So, like, goodness, you have to mention this stuff because that's not okay. That is going way far over the line of any acceptable behavior. It's sick to me.
We covered that. How can you want to, retaliate for what you think is abuse to animals by abusing an animal and killing it? It makes no sense.
Right, exactly. And the same with this stuff. Just the views are so over the line, so ridiculous. You have to create a unwelcoming environment for groups like that. I feel anyway. It's just I lived in Montana for 2 years, and there was a town right by where I live called Whitefish that was just an awesome resort town. Right. Just it has a ski, kind of like Chewelah, has a ski hill, has all these great Glacier National Park is right there. It's just a really happening, nice kind of resort town kind of deal. Well, a few years ago, a neo-Nazi wanted to have an event there, and that town just for a while, got ripped apart because he was from there or he had family there or something like that, and they were going to have a march and all this stuff, and manifestos and things started popping up on business fronts and things like that they would leave and stuff. And for this town that I'd been in and knew it was just a nice town, great place to live,
turned into a nightmare.
All of a sudden you have neo-Nazis, you're making the national news for this kind of stuff, and the guy was an obvious white supremacist, and it's just like, that's terrible for the town of Whitefish. That's just horrible. Who wants to deal with a neo-Nazi march going down their city street? Like, that's just not
well, I know folks in Chewelah will come together if they have to and do stuff, because I'll go back a couple years to when there was a suspected drug house, and the neighbors just had enough, so they all put up their tents in one yard with a giant sign pointing at the house that said drug house.
Right.
And it took about 3 days of them camping on their front lawn till he moved.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of where we value our community there. We just have to be aware of this. Several local religious leaders have already sent a letter to the editor. It's actually in this week's Chewelah Independent, just condemning groups like this neo-Nazi militia and saying that, hey, this is this is not okay. This is a sin. They actually called it a sin. White supremacy is a sin kind of deal. So yeah, but I still think we need to pay attention to this. I'm not saying
get scared, but be aware.
Just be aware, and just I held off on reporting this until until other main sources that could actually at least look into it.
Well, I think, and I agree with the things you say. It can be touchy, and I know
and
what kind of person you are, how you're afraid
rumors too. I mean, these are rumors.
But I know how you are when you say stuff that you try to pick your words carefully, and you're afraid of stepping on someone's toes. But you're totally right about what it does for the appearance of our county.
Right. So. Right. And again, I hope somebody listening isn't thinking we're trying to kind of link, because we kind of segued from the Matt Shea stuff to this, and I'm not saying that those two are connected in either way. It just seemed like the line of conversation, how that happens.
Yeah.
But I think
because there's a similarity between events, and I kind of turned it and made it, well, we do the same thing locally.
Right. But that isn't connected. So somebody might say we were talking about a Stevens County group. That isn't a neo-Nazi group. So it just it hasn't been established or anything like that. So, but these are two separate incidents. I just want to make that clear and not muddy the waters there. But in some of these instances, and this happens a lot in Stevens County, is these allegations get thrown out there or something, and there's no denial. There's no like, no, that's not true. Like these accusations against Shea, he hasn't come out and said, no, it's not true. Hasn't issued a statement, anything like this. And that group that was training youth, they haven't come out, and I think they deleted their Facebook group. They didn't come out and deny, yeah, we're not doing this kind of
just trying to disappear.
Stuff. Yeah.
Which makes you think it's true.
Well, it's not the right response. And I think as a county, if we stop wanting to get painted like this, we've got to start denying stuff like this. You know what I mean? So,
and if there is something that's
and publicly
the ugly underbelly, well, this goes right back to our interview we did a few days ago on homelessness with Dr. Bacon. When there's something ugly that's the underbelly of your community, ignoring it doesn't help. And if you really want it to go away or fix it, you got to get out the big spotlight and shine it at it. And so everybody can see it.
Right. And if there's some groups around here that are we are being unfairly criticized and this is horrible, then deny it. Put out a denial. Like that's what I want to see, is a denial or something like that. Not just let's just keep doing what we're doing.
Because it's the human way to assume the worst.
Yes, it is.
So
that's kind of it's just we do. I think we're getting to a point where we need to talk about this stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. Good job, Brandon.
I don't know. Right. We'll see.
And that takes us to the end of this week's show. It was the Week in Review for the week of August 19th, 2019. I'm Scott Allen.
I'm Brandon.
Thanks for listening to the Week in Review with Brandon Hansen, Managing Editor of the Chewelah Independent, and Scott Allen, Managing Director of Northern Lights Public Radio. Past episodes are in video format on the Chewelah Independent's website and on KCHW's YouTube channel. This program was recorded and filmed at the KCHW FM studios in Chewelah, Washington.